Yes guys, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we're going to be discussing the teams to target based on opening fixtures, and in particular the players to own from each team. So if you are new around here, make sure you do hit that subscribe button and hit that like so you do show your love for the channel. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, so first up we have got Man City. No surprises here that they are amongst the teams that we want to discuss ahead of game week 1. And based on our fixture analyzer, they're actually second best for fixtures over the opening 6 game weeks. So while we knew Man City assets were almost essential in our team, the fact that they actually have great fixtures as well just doubles down on why we need to invest in these assets. Now, we've got 4 players on screen here that I want to talk about in particular. Kevin De Bruyne, Mahrez, Grealish and Cancelo. So we have 3 midfielders there and of course Cancelo as a defender. So before we touch on these 4, I just want to mention a few notable absentees from the screen. First up, Ederson. I think he's a brilliant option at 5.5 million. And if you are looking for a premium goalkeeper investment, I do think that's probably the way to go. Alisson at Liverpool, we don't want to be covering off a Liverpool spot with a goalkeeper. We need those outfield spots available to us. And I think Ederson, with the rotation that Pep Guardiola has, is a really nice way into that Man City defence, because tripling up on Man City outfield players can be quite a tough investment in the long term. Ederson is a really nice set and forget. And the second one, of course, is Haaland. Now, we don't have any information based on the Premier League, so we're looking at players that have tried and tested in the Premier League. But of course, Haaland, with his record in the Bundesliga, is absolutely a consideration for your FPL teams ahead of game week 1. And hopefully the Community Shield can just show us a bit more information on whether, first and foremost, he is fit and how he does structurally fit into this Man City team. So we're going to be looking at the midfielders first and foremost, De Bruyne, Mahrez and Grealish. Now, of course, Kevin De Bruyne coming in at 12 million is the premium pick in the Man City midfielders. However, based on the opening 6 game weeks, his predicted points is 38.4, which is only second best to Mohamed Salah, and there's only about 1 point in that. So when it comes to premium players, KDB is right up there as one of the best options. But right now his ownership is really, really low because of the other options available like Son, like Salah. I do think we need to have a few second questions about Kevin De Bruyne in our fantasy teams. Looking at his goals per 90, 0.61 and expected goals 0.24. He is the all-round package when we are looking at FPL options from a goal conversion perspective and goal creation perspective. And while I do think Haaland is still amazing value at 11.5 million, and we probably should all still looking to have him in our teams, if you want to go for a tried and tested Premier League asset, I think Kevin De Bruyne is a brilliant second premium in your team alongside Mo Salah. Now, the main reason why his ownership is so low in the game is because the available options elsewhere in the Man City midfield, both Mahrez and Jack Grealish, being considerably cheaper. Now, first up, Grealish at 7 million. I think the big problem with Grealish right now is his price point. At 7 million, it's a very awkward price range. The main reason being is because we have so many options available in the 8 million bracket, Mahrez, Saka, Mount, to name a few. If Grealish doesn't hit the ground running and you don't have money in the bank, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to invest an additional 1 million into Jack Grealish's position in the team to get to those 8 million midfielders. So that's why I think I prefer Mahrez based on a team structure perspective and also an underlying stats perspective. You can see when he plays, he's phenomenal in that Man City shirt. 0.66 goals per 90, 0.6 expected goals per 90, and there are whispers of him retaining as a penalty, basically the penalty duty man in that Man City team. We will see with Haaland when he comes in. But I really do think at 8 million, although he is $1 million more expensive than Jack Grealish, I think Mahrez is a brilliant option in that Man City team. And if you do have Haaland up front and you're opting for maybe Cancelo or Ederson in the back, I think that's the only deliberation about Mahrez, whether you want to go for the double up in attack. But if you are looking for a Man City midfielder, I think Mahrez is going to be top of the tree ahead of game week 1. And last up, we have Cancelo. Now, of course, difficult to compare his stats against the 3 midfielders because naturally he isn't as much of an attacking threat in this Man City team. However, when we look at those clean sheets and expected clean sheets, you can see what an absolute monster Man City are as a defensive team. And I think that really does confirm us why we need a Man City defensive coverage in our teams. But also I want to show you here is the expected FPL points 6.3 for Cancelo per 90, which is absolutely ridiculous. And he actually underperformed his underlying stats for FPL points. And really, guys, I see a lot of managers looking around thinking maybe I could downgrade Cancelo to a cheaper alternative. I view Cancelo as one of the best value players in the game. You're getting ownership in one of the best defenses in the league, and importantly, one of the most attacking defenders in the league. And I think it would be crazy to go without Cancelo. So from the Man City boys, I think Cancelo is absolutely in a league above the rest, and Mahrez is a great alternative at 8 million if you want to go for a bit of a differential 8 million slot in your team. So next up, guys, we're going to be looking at Aston Villa and their fixtures coming up. So Aston Villa over the opening 6 game weeks does very much vary to what their opening 4 fixtures are. Based on our fixture analyzer, they're actually second best for fixtures in the opening 4 game weeks, but then follow that by Arsenal and Man City. So I really do view Aston Villa as assets that managers might want to consider if they are looking for an early wildcard around game weeks 5 and game week 6, because you're probably going to be looking for a transfer waiting to happen if you look to hold them beyond game week 4. So if that is your strategy, I think Aston Villa need to be up there as a consideration in your teams for game week 1. And we have a really nice spread of players going into the first game week of the season. Nobody is necessarily massively premium priced, which is great to see. And we have a few players emerging. And one of those is going to be Leon Bailey. Now, this guy was absolutely injury ridden in his first season at Aston Villa. Therefore, we need to take these underlying stats with a pinch of salt because there's so little data in terms of sample size for us to make concrete evidence from. But what we have seen from pre-season is a really exciting talent who is definitely going to be looking to operate in that front 3. And I do think if he does remain fit, we are going to be seeing him getting plenty of game time in an Aston Villa shirt. And you can see here with the underlying stats, expected FPL points of 4.5 is only bettered by Coutinho, who is considerably more expensive, 2 million more. Now, touching on Coutinho, you can see he is the one that is dominating a lot of the underlying stats for expected FPL points, and goals per 90. And I do think Coutinho is going to be decent value at 7 million, but the same argument, similar to what we had with Jack Grealish, comes back to Coutinho. Such a tricky price point for us to fit into our teams. I think naturally when managers are building their squads with big at the back, premiums up front, and a premium midfield, naturally you want to get a little bit of that piece of the pie in that 8 million midfielder slot. Therefore, having a premium, an 8 million and a 7 million midfield makes it incredibly hard to fit the rest of the players around. And that's why I think Coutinho is going to be a player that I think is worth avoiding right now. We can see if he does become a talisman in this Aston Villa team. And if that does happen, then we can look to potentially move on to him in game weeks 2 or 3, or even potentially after their fixture swing in game weeks 5 and 6 later down the line. Now, interestingly, Matty Cash has a little bit of attention in the game. He's been considerably more owned than Digne ahead of game week 1. But personally, I'm not too interested in Matty Cash or Aston Villa defenders as we speak. Unless, again, as I mentioned, you are looking for an early wildcard. Now, I do think at Matty Cash at 5 million, there are better options available. I think Zinchenko is a great option at Arsenal at 5 million. Importantly, 4.5 million options available as well across the board. So I think that is going to rule out Matty Cash as an option. But I do appreciate in the opening 4 game weeks, there could be high potential for Matty Cash. And last up is going to be Watkins at 7.5 million. Now, the big problem with 7.5 million forwards is exactly the same as the 7 million midfielders. Incredibly tricky to justify them when you have really highly owned, great value players at 8 million, like Gabriel Jesus at Arsenal. Now, you can see the underlying stats of Watkins, not exactly what you want to be seeing from a player who plays every single minute. I don't get too excited by these underlying stats. 3.99 FPL points per 90 isn't necessarily the best, but he is quite a consistent performer. And I do think while I'm way more excited about other options available in the game, he could be somebody that we do look back on and think that could have been a smart move. But for me personally, I see Watkins as an avoid. And out of all of the Aston Villa picks, I think Leon Bailey is the one that I would definitely consider in our FPL teams because of the low risk in the price point. I think you could easily drop down to a 4.5 if you need to, and invest elsewhere if you have to later down the line. So next up, guys, we're going to be looking at Arsenal and how many of their assets we think we need to own because they are very popular in the game right now. So as I mentioned, Arsenal are really the talk of the town right now. A brilliant pre-season and some great value options in the game. Now, it's worth noting that they had the 4th best fixtures in the opening 6 game weeks. So while they have brilliant value players, they also have amazing fixtures to kick off the season, which just makes it even more tasty to get little ownership on their players. Now, I've put 4 really interesting assets on the screen for us to compare. And first up is going to be Gabriel Jesus at 8 million. Now, he's over 60% ownership in the game. He's one of the most expensive, one of the highest owned players in the game. And when we do look at the underlying stats, we need to take it with a pinch of salt because these are naturally being taken from his time at Man City. But I really do think that he is going to integrate well into this Arsenal team. I really think it's exactly what they have been looking for. And if he can bring anything like these underlying stats into this Arsenal team with the guaranteed game time that we're expecting from him, I think he's going to be unbelievable value at 8 million. And rightly so, being a highly owned player. And I think naturally, because of his ownership right now and the value that he does pose, I think it's just wise of managers to start the season off with him. And then naturally, if he does really struggle in the Arsenal shirt, we can come down into the 7.5 million players that we can fall back on, like Watkins at Aston Villa, like Wilson at Newcastle, who are proven, tried and tested at their respective clubs. Now, I think the big debate for managers right now is going to be what direction they go with the Arsenal midfielders. First and foremost, Jesus being up front naturally means that we are exposing ourselves to a double up in attack. And while I think Arsenal are a good attacking side, I just think the value is so good there that it is worth us taking that risk on them and hoping that they do hit the ground running. Saka at 8 million, I do think is a better option than Martinelli if money wasn't an option. But with Martinelli being 2 million cheaper than Saka, I really like the potential that is on offer for Martinelli. And you can see that the expected FPL points were 5.7, which is excellent to see. And he could be an absolute gem at that price range. So I really think it's all about what kind of manager you are. If you want guaranteed minutes and almost a talisman figure in your side, I think Saka is the route to go. But I think Martinelli opens so many more doors in your team because you could have Martinelli at 6 million and also an 8 million midfielder like Kulusevski, like Mason Mount, even like Diaz, and still have a piece of the Arsenal attack at an amazing price value. And when we know we have the wildcard available in our back pocket, if it does go the wrong way, we know we can move away from Martinelli and maybe go to a safer Arsenal choice if he does lose his shirt in the Arsenal team. But for me personally, I see him as a starter in this Arsenal team. And last up is going to be another ex-Man City player in Zinchenko. Now again, I'm not going to read too much into the underlying stats here because first and foremost, he played very limited minutes at Man City. And secondly, they're at Man City, so they're not even minutes at Arsenal. But I really do think that he wouldn't have left Man City for Arsenal if he wasn't going to be getting some sort of certainty about his game time in an Arsenal shirt. And we know that he can both operate as a left back and a centre mid, similar to where Xhaka is playing in this Arsenal team. And with Tierney being ruled out for a lot of pre-season, very limited minutes or even time on the field, I do foresee Zinchenko maybe starting in game week 1 and continuing as the game weeks progress. And if we do see him potentially field in midfield, then this is just an out-of-position player that is absolutely essential for our teams. So to round up Arsenal, guys, I really do think that 2 are essential for our sides. And I think Jesus and Martinelli are a really nice balance of FPL picks, Saka being the safer option. And I really think having some investment in that defence is a shrewd move. Tomiyasu, if he does return at 4.5, is a safe option. Otherwise, I really like the potential that Zinchenko offers to our FPL teams. So guys, last up, we're going to be covering the team that has the best fixtures. And that is going to be Wolves. Now, at the time of recording, it is worth noting that we have just heard that Jimenez has been ruled out for potentially up to a month, which is going to hinder him ahead of game week 1, which is a big blow for Wolves and Bruno Lage. But that really does make both Podence and Neto really, really interesting FPL options. Now, both priced at 5.5 million, the FPL community has massively swung towards Neto as the go-to Wolves option. And it's very difficult to come to conclusions about Neto because of how long he spent on the sidelines due to injury at last season. But what we can see with the underlying stats here is his expected FPL points at 5.74 is miles better than Podence and both Jimenez. And also his expected goals at 0.35 is really, really impressive because when we look at Podence, 0.03 expected goals per 90, and Podence has a lot larger actual sample size. He played 1,475 minutes last season opposed to 450 of Neto. So while Neto doesn't have much of a sample size for us to take from, I'm actually a little bit disappointed in Podence's underlying stats based on the amount of game time he had. And in particular, those expected goals, really, really disappointed. It makes me think that it's almost worth taking the risk with Neto, because previous to his injury in the season before, he actually racked up 5 goals and 8 assists. So I really do think there is a gem in there. And if Wolves can get the best out of him and he stays injury free, I do still think he is the best 5.5 million option available to us. And because Wolves have the best 6 fixtures, I really think it's worth the punt going for him. And then naturally, the early wildcard can move us away from him if he does turn out to be a terrible option. And last up, I want to be looking at Ait-Nouri, 4.5 million. Now, naturally got rotated last season for the more experienced Semedo, Johnny, or even Marcel at left wing back. But we do know that Semedo is going to be ruled out for a small amount of time. And Ait-Nouri has featured in pre-season. I do think that he is going to be a starter in this Wolves team. Now, naturally, we're still unsure what sort of formation Wolves are going to roll out ahead of game week 1. If they go for the 3 at the back and Ait-Nouri as a wing back, I think that only heightens him as a brilliant 4.5 million option. Now, Wolves defensively didn't leave too much for us to be happy about at the back end of last season, but I still think that Ait-Nouri being an attacking 4.5 million defender should be right up there on our considerations, especially because of those opening 6 fixtures for us to consider. So looking at Wolves, guys, I personally think Neto is an excellent option in our midfield. I would pick him over Podence. And Ait-Nouri, I think, is going to be up there in my top 3 for 4.5 million defenders, alongside the likes of Dallo. I think they're both brilliant options. But Ait-Nouri just offers that little bit of attacking potential that I want to see from an FPL defender. So that is going to wrap up the teams to target ahead of game week 1, guys. I really hope that has provided a little bit of information and some nuggets of gold that you can take away when you are building your drafts. So if you are new around here, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. And if you did enjoy the video, make sure you do drop a like. All the information to Fantasy Football Fix is in the bio. Make sure you do sign up. All these tools are going to be very, very important to you winning your mini league. So we will see you in the next video, guys. Take care.